Did you know that I'm afraid to have a physical fight? True story. I am actually afraid to have a physical fight. And I have been for quite a while. And I tell you why. Well, I learned something a long time ago, and I mean decades ago. And that was that I had a gift. And my gift, one of a few gifts, was that I could discern certain things the way they were intended to be by nature. I'm not trying to go down a rabbit hole and confuse you, but what I mean is this. I've always been a passive guy, pretty easygoing, never bothered anyone, and I was inspired outside of my having an interest in art when I was a child. I could draw anything. I was accepted at a couple art schools and so forth. Just never attended, but I was accepted. But the thing that got my fancy was martial arts. I began with my uncle, God bless his soul, rest his soul, Willie Bates. He was my first martial arts instructor, jiu-jitsu, combat jiu-jitsu. He fought in the Korean War and wounded. And there was a few other friends. But I remember one day I was watching a television show and then a commercial came on and I saw Bruce Lee. That inspired me. Something about that just sucked me right in. And ever since then, I began martial arts, my official training. Joined my first school, had several instructors, a couple different disciplines and so forth, and then I built upon those over the years. And then in my early 20s, I joined the military, United States Army. I was in the infantry. But enough of that really, because what I'm trying to segue into is the fact that I learned how to hurt and how to cripple and how to maim another human being if I had to. But that passive side of me always remained. And I kept that balance of my other side, that aggressive side to myself. And I sort of exuded that when it comes to martial arts competitions in the sporting aspect. But I did kickboxing, full contact in our school coming up. Few matches as well. But what I'm getting at is this. The gift that I really had was that I could discern where my skill level actually was and what my capabilities actually were. And I never would want to hurt another human being. I've always been the one who was the protector. And I would do it verbally, as we're taught. Avoid a fight. Walk peaceably amongst all men. Don't walk around trying to be a bully. That was never me. I was always the easygoing guy. But I realized, and I started to delve into various other disciplines as far as martial science is concerned in martial arts. And I began to tap into the spiritual aspect of it and what it really meant. And understanding, comprehending that martial arts, as it relates to the physical confrontation aspect, should always be the very last thing. So, isn't it true that when we say self-defense, and I teach my students this, when we say self-defense, it would only mean when you really are in danger or harm. When someone is trying to inflict injury upon you or another weak individual, family member or whomever, you're protecting yourself or those people. That is the only time you would ever resort to physical force. And I understood this at a young age. So I became afraid because I realized as I began to go deep, I should say, into the martial arts studies, of various disciplines. And some of the things that I found that you could do, and I learned pressure points and some various other things, and I said, well, I would never want to hurt a person for no good reason at all. So I don't like that side of me. So I come to the conclusion many years ago that if that thing turned on, and I always illustrate it this way with my students, I say, there's a sleeping tiger inside me. When he is aroused, I stand up. And I'm on the protective mode. And when I have to defend myself, and it's always an absolute situation, it's warranted. You'll never see me physically hurt another person unless it's warranted. But my issue has been this. If I turn that tiger on, I'm afraid of what I'll do and how far I'll go. Doesn't mean that I don't have any constraint or restraint. It just simply means that when I look at the world in which the world moves right now, it's a lot of violence in our society. I don't know that other individual standing in front of me that wants to hurt me. So I must be prepared to die, maybe. Do you follow what I'm saying? So I'm not afraid of what that other individual could potentially do to me. I'm afraid of what I'll do. Because once I turn it on, or it turns on, when it turns on, I'm going to hurt you. That's not bragging or boasting. That's not me being egotistical. It's just simply the truth. I'll never use my martial arts to harm another human being unless it's absolutely necessary. It's the very last resort. But you had better believe if I do, it was necessary. And it will be necessary if it comes down to that. So that's where my fear lies. Not what the other person will do to me. Because once you turn me on, I can't promise you what the outcome is going to be. And it's not going to be in your favor. It's really that simple. And at my age, I say this humbly, still. And I would admonish all instructors and black belts and practitioners of the martial arts that see this video right now to take heed to what I'm saying. You should never go around trying to go for bad, talking about how good you are, and you'll spank this person and then spank that other individual and so forth, and you could beat this person. It doesn't mean anything. It's just jabbing. It's jabber. You're just running off at the mouth. So I think that's one of the reasons people have so much respect and reverence for me, because I represent the thing. Not that others don't, but I do. I speak from experience. From over 50 years now in the martial arts, and I have never had a vacation. I've never had a respite, never taken off, never talked about retiring, because this is what I do. This is how I live. My life, I still teach. So, I just wanted to share that. My fear is not of that other person. And I would hope never do anything to incite any violence against myself. I'm not going to do anything to make someone want to hurt me. If they want to hurt me, that's something that they're dealing with, not me. It's not because I've done anything to anyone, because I don't bother anyone. How do you feel about this? You instructors out there, or just the general audience. What do you think about what I just said? You see, the things that I've learned in my life, and I say this to my students as well, and I'm very careful the age group that I'm talking to in my classes. And I say this: the would-be attacker or assailant against me in a potential situation. Whatever's causing them to want to harm me, I'm observing them and I'm breaking them down anatomically. They just don't know it. And while I'm looking at them, I see vulnerable spots, pressure points, and targets. That's the way I was taught. That's the way I train. I'm looking at targets. You just don't know it. And I have a whole encyclopedia of targets when you're standing in front of me that I'm looking at. You don't know that. So please beware. I'm just saying. So, some admonishment and some encouragement. You would-be martial arts practitioners and students and black belts and even masters and grandmasters, stay humble. Live a long and prosperous life as much as you possibly can, and avoid conflict, verbally and physical, if you can. And if you ever have to protect yourself, make sure that it's warranted. This is Grandmaster Reginald Stroud, Sr., also known fondly as Brother Teacher. Enjoy your day and your evening, wherever you may be. So long.